Well, just how close was Oregon to making the college football playoff last year? Is it just one defense away? It's not that simple. Here we go.
You are Locked On Ducks, your daily podcast on the Oregon Ducks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Yes, it is that time once again for Locked On Ducks. I'm your host, Spencer McLaughlin. Thank you so much for making this your first listen or your first view of the day on a post-Super Bowl Monday, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your number one source to stay up to date with the Ducks. If you haven't already, please like, comment, subscribe, 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to or watch this show, which today is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, which can help you hire qualified candidates more efficiently by matching open roles with people who have the skills, values, and experiences to help you achieve your 2023 goals. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. Terms and conditions apply. You all know by now I love your mailbag questions because you come up with great ones and you can ask them on YouTube or Twitter. However you want to get in touch with me, by all means. Eric asks, quack, quack. Great way to start a question. That was in all caps, by the way. Is Oregon one elite defensive coordinator / defense away from another run at the Natty? I'm going to amend that to saying /CFP. The answer is yes, maybe, but I want your thoughts. If we can score 40 plus per game and have an A plus, even a B plus defense and don't choke, ouch, but fair, we're there. It's why we brought in Lanning, but what exactly is our itinerary in getting there? A few classes? So the important thing to recognize here is in 2022, Oregon was an elite defense away, or maybe even just an above average defense away from getting to the college football playoff. That is abundantly true. The offense had a great O-line. I mean, one of the best offensive lines, I'm not overstating things here, Oregon has ever had. Georgia couldn't sack Bo Nix. Georgia. Oregon ran it for 4.5 yards per carry. There were a lot of other factors working against them in that game. Offensive line wasn't overmatched. A lot of other teams in the country would have been, and often were when they took on the Bulldogs. But Oregon's was not. They had an elite offensive line. They had a great playmaker quarterback. They had a bunch of weapons. Offensively, they were there. And they were one good or above average or great defense away from getting back to the college football playoff. Not going to argue. But going into next year, the answer is not that simple. Teams change, especially now in this age of college football, really quickly. Their identities change, their strengths, their weaknesses, the breaks they get over the course of a season, how players perform, which players perform at a high level or not. All of that can change dramatically from one year to the next. And it can take one coach leaving. It could take one player leaving or getting hurt. It could take a variety of singular factors or more to really influence what sort of team the Ducks are able to put on the field year in and year out. So in 2022, yes, we were an elite defense away from getting to the college football playoff because an elite defense doesn't allow 400 passing yards at home to Michael Penix, nor does it allow Oregon State to put up 38 points with some special teams blunders, but I kind of put those things together. Defense, special teams, I've always associated them. Maybe that's because of fantasy football, but again, they play off each other far more than the special teams and the offense does, save, of course, for the return game. But the plays we're talking about influence the defense greatly more. And a good to great defense doesn't allow 38 points, while the Beavs only complete 6 passes. So yes, in 2022, that was the case. But there is no guarantee that that's going to be the case in 2023 or in 2024 or in 2025. We can't know, right? It's why we talk about that sort of stuff all the time right here on the show, because this stuff is always evolving and changing. Players change, coaches come and go, strengths and weaknesses, scheme, philosophy, just kind of the natural way of randomness thing, frankly, that things can play out. I didn't phrase that very well, but essentially in sports, and one of the reasons we all love them so much, there is an element of randomness and unpredictability. If everything was predictable, Vegas wouldn't make money setting gambling lines because people would know what's going to happen. You don't. You could have all the pieces for something, but that doesn't mean it plays out that way. Oregon basketball has all the pieces, mostly, not all, but has all the pieces to be a top 25 team right now. They are not. There's an element of randomness to that. There's an element of predictability to that. And you never know how those specific things are going to play out. But the identity of the team, we saw what it was in 2022. It was play really good defense to the point where you had a big lead, and then they kind of let up a little, but mostly let the offense kind of carry the way. Be explosive, be multiple, run the ball well, rely on the offensive line. We don't know what it's going to look like in 2023. Think about it like this. In 2019, which was the last best chance, not the last chance forever, but the last great opportunity Oregon really had to get to the playoff, not in 2022, where they were still several weeks away, but they were closer in 2019 with, yes, Marcus Arroyo as the offensive coordinator, but Andy Avalos, who I really like, as the defensive coordinator. That team, under Mario Cristobal and company, lacked some wide receivers for sure, but had a lot of really elite offensive personnel. But they were a defensively led team. They allowed something like 18, 19 points per game. They had Kayvon Thibodeau. They had Troy Dye at linebacker. They had several NFL caliber defensive backs. Then look at the team just a couple years, just 2 years later, under the same coaching staff, save for an assistant coach or coordinator leaving here and there, new defensive coordinator, new offensive coordinator, same head coach. The strength of that team changed in just 2 seasons, one of which wasn't even a full season, 2020. To where in 2021, the offense was better than the defense, which was suddenly struggling to get off the field on third down a lot under Tim DeRuyter. And it was Joe Moorhead's play calling that felt like it was really saving the Ducks. And the offensive line again dominated. That was a consistent theme with Mario Cristobal. I bring all this up to say that in 2022, yes, if Oregon's defense had been elite, they would have most likely gotten to the college football playoff because the offense was good enough. The offense was clearly good enough. You're scoring over 35, 40 points a game. I mean, they had a stretch of 7, 8 straight games with 40 or more points. I don't care what conference you're in. That is good enough. That is what we need to see offensively to get back into the college football playoff. And defensively, at the end of the year and situationally, they were not there. But going forward, that's a component you need to have. Doesn't necessarily mean the defense has to be elite. But the second part of his question, what exactly is our itinerary in getting there? I like the use of the word itinerary, which is not the only reason I'm going to answer that question, but it's certainly a reason as to why I'm going to answer that question. If Oregon's itinerary were to, I don't know, be a small business and go out hiring, they'd probably check out LinkedIn Jobs. Because as a small business owner or hiring manager, you know that success in 2023 all depends on the team members you surround yourself with. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you quickly attract qualified candidates to your open jobs with targeting tools. They go beyond the resume data and use insights from your job post, their company, and 875 million member profiles to put your post in front of the most qualified candidates. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. I hope I snuck that live read up on you sufficiently. I was trying to be a little clever. I got to keep you on your toes. got to keep you on your toes. So, interesting use of the word itinerary here, but basically what Eric is asking is, what is our timeline in becoming a B plus or above defense? I would grade Oregon's defense in 2022. Let's say and I'm a harsh grader, by the way. So that defense in 2019, that's an A. That's what an A defense looks like. Less than 20 points a game. They were fantastic. They were the reason that team won a Pac-12 championship and a Rose Bowl. Remember, Utah was scoreless in the first half of the 2019 Pac-12 championship game. That defense was awesome. They had a bunch of ballers. Kayvon Thibodeau, Troy Dye, Isaac Slade, Matayo Uiagalelei. And then in the secondary, you had Diamondor Lenore, Javon Holland, Thomas Graham. NFL, NFL, NFL. Across the board. Really, a lot of really, really good players. So then the question becomes, is Oregon close to getting there? They're moving in that direction. But if we grade the 2022 defense as, I'll say C minus, slightly below average compared to what the expectations were, I think in 2023, you should have it at least at a B minus. At the very least, there is no reason, there is no justifiable excuse. I don't care. Okay, maybe if you have ridiculous San Francisco 49er-esque injuries, I would say injuries, well, this guy got injured, that guy got injured, maybe that changes the calculus. But the depth of talent there, second year with Lanning at the helm, second year with Luke Hoy as the DC, number of key returning players like Brandon Dorlus, for instance, Popo Almavai, Casey Rogers on the defensive line, the acquisitions that they have brought in, yeah, they should be a lot better. I am personally of the belief, and if you expect something sooner, I understand it. Part of that is we live in the microwave instant gratification society, but part of it is also you see a lot of drastic turnarounds for other teams on one side of the ball. Understandable. I think defense is a lot harder to do that on because the rules of football and where the coaching efforts really are and where the best players are typically on the offensive side nowadays. But, there is no real excuse for the defense to not be better this year. No excuse. I can't think of one. You brought in a bunch of transfers who should be instant impact players. Yep, you lost Christian Gonzalez. But you're going to lose players every year. Everybody is. And at the end of the day, that Oregon defense a year ago wasn't missing as much talent as you'd think if you just looked at their numbers on paper. They were missing some details. They were missing pass rushers, which is a huge, huge, huge thing. Will not overlook that point. But more than anything, they were missing assignments, technique, experience maybe for some guys like Jaleel Florence or a bunch of other young guys. Dante Manning maybe in the new system needs a year to grow. That sort of stuff is very real. It's not something people just talk about just to say something, to sound intelligent. Like going into a system that is new and learning it from one year to the next, that makes a difference on both sides of the ball. So the returners should be better. The coaches should be smarter and more adaptable to what was, I thought, a lack of adjustments in those two really poor defensive efforts against Oregon State and Washington. They should be better in those situations. No excuses. Does that mean they're going to be playing at a college football playoff level? Hard to say. If you're someone who wants to, I realize I never really put a finite point on this particular point earlier. If you think it should be 2 years to get a turnaround or 1 year improvement and then, 2 years really have it humming, I get that. I'm still a guy who I say I'm going to evaluate year 3 the most harshly. 2, I need to see improvement. Year 1 depends on what you have. can't expect too much. You can expect some improvements, but if you get radical shifts on that side of the ball, then it's more of a bonus than what your expectation should have been. Year 2, I expect to see pretty drastic improvements, especially with the personnel they're bringing in. And then year 3 is when I expect things to be really, really good. Like Kenny Dillingham, for instance, year 1, he did really well. I know we all have a final memory of him not being able to punch the ball in the end zone on 1st and goal from the 5. Yep, that was bad from him, and the rest of the offense too. But in year 1, they were really good. And that surpassed expectations greatly. And in year 2, I'd expect them to be better. And if he had come back for a 3rd year, I would have expected them to be operating at the highest possible level, assuming they were able to bring in the personnel that you need, which Oregon can, by the way. So I think itinerary-wise, to answer your question here, Eric, it is another step that I expect to see this year, but I still think there will be another level. I would love for Oregon's defense to be top 3 in the Pac-12 this year. That would be fantastic. It would help the team tremendously, take pressure off the offense with a new OC. I think that'd be awesome. However, I do not expect, nor do I think we will see, the Ducks to play their best defense ever with Dan Lanning and company in place in terms of the coaching staff in 2023. In 2024, that's when we should see it. Good question. Another one from Tyler Smith. Do you think Matayo Uiagalelei, of course, will play any tight end this year? I don't think the staff wants him to, because if they did, I don't think they would have gone after Nicholas Harbor as aggressively as they did, which we know was well documented. They were going after him with good reason, by the way, of course. Would have loved to have gotten him, but oh well. I expect them to poke around on Deuce Robinson for this reason. Right now, you have 3 scholarship tight ends going into this year. So this is a reasonable question to ask. I think it's completely fair. Matayo played tight end in high school. We saw a player for the last several years go back and forth. That being DJ Johnson, defensive end, tight end, similar body types. They're lining up on similar parts of the field. When you're playing as a defensive end, you're going up against tight ends a lot and vice versa. So I think I understand how that shift is able to be made. And Matayo has a lot of impressive film as a tight end. Like if he were coming out as a tight end, you'd say, hey, this is a really good looking tight end prospect for the Ducks. I wouldn't suspect he will play too much tight end, if any. I don't think the staff wants him to. I think they recognize what I see, which is T. Ferg, Patrick Herbert, Kenyon Sadiq. Okay, let's go find a 4th. We'd really like to have a 4th body we feel good about there. They were hoping that'd be Harbor. It's not. I expect him to go after Robinson. I don't expect him to play a lot at tight end unless it's maybe as a blocker in a jumbo package or catch a pass every now and then, which I'd be fine with, by the way. But I don't want him to come in and start playing a lot of tight end. I don't. Because I want him to develop fully on the other side of the ball. That's where Oregon needs more help. And I don't think you can maximize your potential. I think DJ Johnson showed spurts this year of what he was truly capable of. But I do think his growth at the defensive end position was stunted by the necessity of him playing tight end, which Oregon did need him to do. Again, going in for a jumbo package every now and then, learning a couple plays, getting a couple reps on offense, that's not the end of the world. But actively going back and forth between both sides of the ball, I think for someone at the defensive end position, we saw maybe Mateo's just built different and he could do it. I wouldn't be crazy about it. There is a player who did that very well, going back and forth between offense and defense, and frankly, it worked out just fine, and he played both ways. Tell you who that is, and you can decide whether or not that gives you hope after I talk to you all about Built Bar, which, tastes like a treat. but they don't have all the fat and calories of a typical treat. And if you want to eat healthy after pigging out like I did on Super Bowl Sunday, Built Bars are a great way to do that. What makes Built Bars so good? Well, for starters, they're all covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably great flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, mint brownie, my personal favorite, coconut almond, and so many more. I don't know how Built does it, but they taste like a candy bar with only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 17 grams of protein. That's it. That's all you need. Built.com, Walmart, Sam's Club. Get your latest order now. Right now. That was a very demanding ad read there. Go get your Built Bars now, or I will be disappointed in you. Not actually, but a little. Anyway, so the player that I was thinking of is Charles Nelson, who played receiver / gadget guy, right? Kind of that Jalen Red role, what Seven McGee was kind of supposed to be, and that didn't end up working out, unfortunately. I wish we had Charles Nelson to return kicks and punts, because that is I don't know who's doing that for Oregon right now, but maybe Hudson? I don't know. We'll see. He went both ways. He did it very well. Charles Nelson did it exceptionally well. So it's not impossible. But I do feel like it's a little bit different playing in the trenches versus being a wide receiver and a safety. It's doable in theory, but I would like to see Matayo concentrating his efforts to be an elite pass rusher. We need that, and those are not as in high a supply as, say, getting someone who's a more than capable tight end. So I think it could happen every now and then, to answer your question, Tyler, but I don't suspect it to become a regular thing, and I don't think the staff wants it to be that. Closing today with a quick note on Oregon basketball. The women's side, yikes, they've lost 5 in a row. Just bad vibes at the moment. They need a late season turnaround, big time. The men got a split with the LA schools last week. Beat USC comfortably on Thursday. Played well, but had too long of a scoring drought in the second half against UCLA. They led at the half against the Bruins. Couldn't ultimately pull the upset of the number 7 team in the country. Now, winning that game against UCLA could have helped a lot, but was it a necessity? The answer is no. You didn't have to win that game with UCLA. Would have been great, but you didn't have to. You had to win one of those games, and you did. And now Oregon's got 5 regular season games left, and they're going to be favored in all of them. At Washington on Wednesday, at Washington State on Sunday, I think it is. Then next week they play at Oregon State, and then they host the Bay Area schools to end the season. You got 5 games there. Anything less than 4-1 removes the possibility of getting an at-large bid. We'll see where they come out in the latest bracketology. I could see them, after that USC win, who are projected as a tournament team going into it, they're not taken into account in a significant way that USC was missing a couple players in that game. They still had a lot of really good ones available. That was a resume-boosting win. Not as much as UCLA would have been, but still good. You've got to win over Arizona. I'm telling you. 4-1. I mean, if you go 5-0, great. They should go 5-0. They probably won't. If you can go 4-1, you'd end the year 19-12. And if you win win a Pac-12 tournament game or two, it's possible. Not saying likely, but it's possible. And I will not give up on this team because I just love college basketball too much. Appreciate everyone listening. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and go Ducks.